I was reading this thing and it was like anything that takes less than 2 to 5 minutes, do it right now. Even if there's a bunch of them, just anything that takes less than 2 to 5 minutes, just do them. And that could be like doing the dishes, whatever. Like instead of vacuuming the entire house, just vacuum for 5 minutes. And like I did all of that shit today, but I added the guitar to the list, and it's kind of sad for me to realize that like practice kind of fell into that group of objects that are things that I don't want to do but need to do. The people who are amazing, the people who are great, like I don't know if they were fascinated when they were learning the notes on the fretboard, because like you said, Joey Satch, Steve Vai, John Mayer, like they all sat down and did this. This is like one of the prerequisites to them like exponentially improving their learning curve, was just learning the letters in the alphabet, essentially, so that they could learn to speak.
Yeah.
So yeah, I get it, man. Like it's just kind of lame for me because I was like, oh, okay, I literally realized like I can force myself to do this, but I'm not going to be like, cool, now I get to relax and do notes on the fretboard. It's like the unsexy thing of the day, you know what I mean?
I think it's important to realize that not all of our practice is going to be fun. We're not going to enjoy it, and we also don't have to. That doesn't mean that we don't like playing the guitar. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I do not enjoy all of the practice that I do. I'm not as disciplined as I want to be on the guitar, you know? But like in a macro sense, you enjoy it, you know, you look forward to it. You like the process of getting better. I think it's dishonest for people to say that, oh, you know, you got to like enjoy it all the time and like it should always be fun. It's like, no, like, I don't think it is always fun. Like I'm sure for some people it is. Do you know what I mean? I'm sure there are the few exceptions who they live and breathe guitar and all they want to do is play it for, you know, 8 hours a day. And you know, those people are rare, you know,
Yeah.
and I think if those people are honest, I'm sure they'd say that there are also times when they don't want to do the thing, but they're
Yeah.
committed to
Discipline.
the thing, you know.
Yeah.
And I think as well, like when we also kind of take into account the fact that we live in a society that tends to encourage dopamine reinforcing behavior, you know, whether that's like social media or whatever, like we
Yeah.
kind of are programmed to think that it should always feel good. And we tend to kind of prioritize the things that feel more good because like they give us more dopamine. And, you know, in reality, if you kind of like made your life stupid simple and cut back everything that kind of gave you dopamine and like only practice guitar, you probably would enjoy it and get more out of it than you do currently. I'm not necessarily saying you should do that, but I just think it's an important thing to kind of be aware of and understand that that is a dynamic that comes into play too. And like, given that that is the thing that happens, we can then say, all right, like, I want to play guitar and I'm not feeling it right now, probably because of these other factors, probably because I've, you know, had bad social media habits or whatever, but I'm going to be
Yeah.
disciplined. Like I'm still going to exercise a bit of discipline and do this thing because I've got an end goal. Like I don't enjoy playing the guitar all the time. Do you know what I mean? But when I
Mm.
think about like my life on a macro sense, I'm like, actually, I want to be a professional musician. I want to do music full time. Like that's what I want to do. Like it doesn't mean I have to enjoy every minute of it. And there are other kind of factors in your life in terms of, you know, like how are you feeling health wise? Like, are you getting enough sleep? Like, are you kind of having like bad social media habits that's reinforcing kind of, you know, unhelpful dopamine cycles? Like, there are all of these other factors that affect how motivated you are to do the aspects of guitar that aren't necessarily the most fun. And when we understand that those things are at play, I think it can help us contextualize that feeling of, oh, I don't want to practice this a little bit better, because that doesn't mean you don't want to play guitar. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand, and I think that you're 100% right on that one. And I like what you said about simplifying our lives. So like, I deleted all of my social media. I don't have anything. Recently recreated Facebook and Instagram, and have realized that I don't actually derive any utility from Either of them. The best I have is I get to see when my mates' birthdays are on Facebook and wish them happy birthday. But other than that, I don't.
It's
And so
tough, man, because like I get a lot of, I think, enjoyment and benefit out of social media, whether it's kind of like learning interesting things or kind of seeing what people are up to, like, and kind of music related stuff. But even though I think that for me there are legitimate benefits of being involved on social media,
yeah,
I still definitely spend unnecessary time scrolling. Do you know what I mean? And
but
I
that's
probably jump on it too early in the morning. Like, so,
yeah.
like, you know, if you can't, like, I need to be more careful in terms of how I manage my social media consumption, even though I'm not going to like cut it all out, because I think for me, there are like what I would consider legitimate benefits.
So many people go years and years and years and years and years on end with long periods of unconsciousness where they don't realize that these things are problems in their lives. And I don't think that it would ever be reasonable to like, maybe it would be reasonable, but personally, I find that my levels of consciousness are cyclical, and each time it gets tighter and tighter and tighter and better. And right now, I think I've gone through like a maybe 3 or 4 week period of relative unconsciousness, but awareness of these issues is good. And you know, you highlighted something which is just sleep and energy levels, and I got adrenal fatigue at the moment, which is kind of shit. Like I'm sleeping a lot, and I got real low testosterone and all those sorts of things just from overtraining and antibiotics and shit like that. So that's been shitty. Like my general concentration has been low. But there's this other thing as well of like intentional practice. Some people would derive more from 10 minutes of intentional practice than others would derive from like an hour to 2 hours of unintentional practice. And it's like that 5 minute block of like, cool, I'm only going to do 5 minutes, ensures that that 5 minutes is intentional, which multiplies, right, exponentially.
Absolutely, bro. And I think like one thing that's been big for me this year has been consistency. Like, more so relating to exercise. You know, I've been trying to build consistency into kind of my exercise habits. You know, with my running streak that I was going on, it's like I'm going to run every day. It was the running every day thing that was the goal, not necessarily the I've got to run this far. You know, especially after I kind of like injured myself again. And there's been a few days where it's like a token ass run. Like I went 500 meters around the block, didn't even change. Like, you know, like, but it's building that consistency. And like same with the gym. I've been trying to go 6 days a week. Because I was like, you know, I'm just gonna show up, I'm gonna go because I want to build that consistency. And like what I found is, as a result of prioritizing consistency, I did look forward to doing it more, you know, because you start to kind of see the little gains, things get easier, you kind of enjoy the process. And I think that's the same with guitar. When you focus on consistency and you're like, I'm just going to show up, I'm just going to do this thing, but it's intentional, of course, you start to see the gains. You're like, oh, this was cool, I did this thing, like this worked. And then you're more like you're more motivated because you're like, wow, I want to kind of keep going with that. Like I'm going to show up tomorrow and do the thing. The last month or two, I definitely have not been practicing as much as I'd like. You know.
Yeah.
I've still been practicing kind of 5 to 6 days a week, like probably for around an hour a day. So I'm still getting that in, but it's nowhere near as much as I'd like. But I'm like, well, you know, I'm getting some practice in. You know, I'm working on something intentionally, even though it might be a little bit more chilled practice-wise. I'm still kind of working on some stuff, you know. I think it's okay to have like more lax seasons of practice because, like you kind of alluded to earlier, life doesn't just go in one smooth up. You talked about kind of cycles or whatever. And like, I think it is kind of true that, you know, we tend to go through these kind of like up and down cycles, whether that's in terms of our like mood or how we're feeling, or maybe like our mental health or our fitness or whatever. We tend to go through these cycles. And like, at least for me, what I've found like over the last like 10 years or so, like I do go through cycles every year and like all of those things. Yeah. But I think as you go through them each time, they tend to be less and less intense. Like you don't swing as far, you know what I mean? Because you like you learn to better kind of manage that, and you kind of put things in place. And like the next time you kind of like spiral out a little bit, it's because you know, you've put things in kind of place to develop better habits and routines and stuff, and then you're spiraling out. It's just simply because like, oops, I didn't account for that. And then the next time you kind of know, and you're able to kind of get more like consistent, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's that's how life works, and I don't think it's realistic to expect our practice to not follow a similar thing and not fit into that scenario. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, we can't be like, practice must be like this when life is like this. Like, otherwise, then we just get depressed that our practice is not this.
Yeah, it's never going to be linear, dude. And it's like, it's exactly the same in jiu-jitsu. Like, the path is not linear. And I feel like the defeat that you can experience if you don't sort of pack expectations is probably the bigger limiting factor, rather than the defeat or the failure itself, is like the attitude from what is perceived as the defeat. So long story short, I know that this like musical journey is not going to be linear, and right now it's probably in a bit of a lull. But I also know that once this little hurdle is over, and the encyclopedia of knowledge is sort of such that we can explore some other more interesting topics, because the notes are not interesting. They're rudimentary at best, right?
Yeah, that's freaking boring.
But exactly, bro. So it's like, yeah, that's cool. And like, yeah, that's pretty much my prime motivation to just get it done. But I've only got 5 strings to do. That's the other thing I carry on forgetting. I've only got 5 strings to do. I've almost done 2 of them. So I've only got 60% of it left to go.
I think like, I also don't think it helps to pretend like the boring stuff is not boring.
No.
It's because then like when you're practicing it and you like, oh, that sucks, you feel like, oh, like it's not supposed to feel like this. It's like, no, the boring stuff is boring. we got to put the work in to get it done. And like, it doesn't mean we have to do only that. We hopefully want to structure it in such a way that is not overwhelmingly mindless, but like, it doesn't have to be fun. But yeah, man, I think that consistency I think is the biggest thing, because you will very, very rarely notice any significant improvement in your practice week to week or day to day. Sometimes something you kind of like stumble across something, or suddenly understand how to think about something a different way, and like unlock something. You're like, oh, that's cool, And that's always like really, really motivating when you find something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But 99% of the time, day to day, week to week, month to month, you don't feel like you've made a ton of progress.
Yeah, which is fine as well. Right.
It's fine because, like I don't feel like I'm a much better guitar player this week than I was last week. Do you know what I mean? But I feel like I'm a much better guitar player this year than I was 3 years ago, 5 years ago.
Yeah, it's just this little hurdle of getting the notes done. And
but think how satisfying it's going to be, bro, once you have the notes down. See, and you're like, sick. Like, you're just kind of revising them. Like, because this is the other thing. Like, this is like, I often say this to people when they're starting out. Like, your progress is inevitable. You can't not get better at the guitar if you're doing the right things. You can't make backwards progress. And yeah, but like you have to be really trying hard to make a mess. Do you know what I mean? And we are doing the right things,
Yeah.
And so like you with the notes, you're gonna have them down by Christmas at this rate, And then you're gonna start the year having a good knowledge of the notes on the fretboard. You'll keep revising them, So we get them down doesn't mean we want to stop and forget about them. We want to continue to reinforce them. But like this is inevitable. Do you know what I mean? Like it can't go any other way,
Yeah.
And I think like that's the cool thing, Like if you do the thing and know that this is the right, like, bro, this happens all the time, right? So like I have recently just got a personal trainer at the gym because I kind of realized I was like, it's so ironic that I know exactly how to take someone from not being able to play guitar to being a very good guitar player. Like I know exactly how to do that the most effective way. And like it happens all the time when, you know, when I'm teaching students, I'll be like, they'll be struggling with something. I'll be like, okay, you're going to do this thing in approximately this amount of time. You're going to be able to do this thing. And you're going to look back and you'll be like, wow, do you know what happens? Every time it happens exactly as I say.
Yeah.
Because like I know what's going to happen when you do this and this and this over this period of time, given like the practice that you've kind of demonstrated that you do. You do what I mean?
Yeah.
And like this has happened like every time, you know. And so I was like, okay, well, given that I'm not that much of an expert when it comes to working out, I was like, I probably should get a trainer to tell me what to do because like if because I want to be effective, right? I want to kind of maximize my progress and my results, and I want to know that what I'm doing is going to have this result. Because like if I go to the gym, I can be like doing all the stuff, but if I'm like, is what I'm doing actually going to track to this result, or am I doing it in the most effective way that's going to track to this result? Because I don't want to just be wasting my time. Like with guitar, like I can confidently tell students exactly what's going to happen in how many months if they do this, and it always works out to be what I say, you know, because I've seen it happen for 14 years now. Do you know what I mean? Like if you do this, this is going to happen. Like there's no way other than that, you know.
I'm super excited, bro, because like the identity that I want to create is like ultimately to not have an identity, but the pillars of my life that I want to have that I would like to be a performing musician. Like, I really, really just once in my life, just once. I was saying this to about the other day. I literally just want to play one gig in my life. That's it. Just one live music gig. I've done it once before as a kid. I played in assembly and it was so cool. I'd never had a rush like that before in my life. And yeah, I just want to play music, man. Like even if it's on the weekend and I pay $400 to get there and I get paid $50 for being there, you know what I mean? Like you need some lime green picks. That's what you need.
Bro, I actually had some. The pick that I use, it also comes in green, but I don't have any of the green ones left.
You need some lime green ones.
It dropped down there. It dropped down there. I do need some high-vis picks. But bro, like what you're saying is very achievable, man. I'm just gonna I lie. Do you know what I have here?
You know, this is
a green one. Look, a green one.
Yeah,
I've used the green one. I'll start using that. We'll stop having this problem where I drop picks every 10 minutes.
It's too dark. This is the thing as well, bro. It's like I want to be, I want to do, I want, and it's like I can pay you to give me these lessons and talk. And like the last 3 sessions, 3 or 4 sessions that we've had have basically been you saying to me nicely, come on, bro, like you're paying for the lessons. I want you to get over the line, but you're not doing homework. And like, it's like there's value in that, because I know like that I came to you because I want to learn what you. I was saying this to Andy. Andy messaged me and he was like, bro, I heard you're making good progress at music. I was like, I don't know what Matt's told you, bro. I've not been doing my homework. And like I said to Andy, thank you, because like you could not have linked me up with someone who is any more perfectly aligned to what I actually want to achieve. And the thing is, bro, like right now I'm overcoming probably 15 years of resistance to learn music. I've done campfire jamming the entire time and very shallow level. Like I fucking hate music theory. I hate it. But you've given me, I know that that's the key to me getting better. And I also know that that's what you have to offer versus other music teachers who would be like, you know what, that's all good, man. Instead of doing that, let's do this. But you're saying to me, you're breaking through that resistance. You're like, dude.
that's the thing, man. Like the thing about, the thing about music theory, because we've been talking about this idea of we want to integrate our understanding, physical understanding, intellectual understanding, oral understanding. The thing about music theory is if you're out here trying to learn more of it than you can integrate and apply, like obviously it's going to be boring. Do you know what I mean? Like there's no reason to learn it. You're just wasting your time. But what you do want to do is make sure you have a very thorough and usable understanding of the stuff that you are integrating, because then it becomes stupidly useful. But all of the other stuff, like, we don't need to worry about that, you know? It's like an as needed basis. That's what we want to do with theory, is we want to kind of like build a foundation, you know, like slot stuff in as needed. And then like we don't forget it, and it all makes sense, and it enhances everything else because it's what we're using. The moment we start trying to add music theory or work on things that don't relate to what we're doing is the moment we start to develop resentment towards it, because it's like not helpful. But also with what you were saying about, you know, we've been talking about a lot of conceptual stuff, but I think the other thing that people don't realize when they start out learning, whether they're a complete beginner or someone like you that has a lot of preconceived notions about it, is it's a lot more to do with what's going on in your head than it is to do with what you're doing with your hands. You know, like when you're starting out, you know, and we'll say, you know, we're trying to learn a chord. It's like, cool, you're trying to learn the chord. But if you're not thinking correctly about what your body needs to be doing, if you're not able to kind of visualize your shape, like move your hand in that direction, like if you don't have the right approach mentally in terms of how you need to be practicing that stuff, like it's not going to work out very well for you. You'll develop muscle memory, and let's hope it's the right muscle memory. But other than that, like it's not going to work. It's so much more a mind game than people think, you know? And like for you, like I think you have made a whole bunch of progress, even though we haven't done a ton of like practical stuff. We've done a little bit of stuff and you kind of understand it. But, you know, if you can kind of unlock kind of the correct way to think about things mentally, and if you can understand how and why we are structuring things a certain way, you know, if you can understand what the foundation looks like, and kind of learn where things kind of fit in their proper places, and understand, okay, I've kind of got this down, but there's a bit lacking here, and I need to do this because of that. Like if you can get it all straight in your head, then you've got a vision that you can move towards. Do you know what I mean? Then you've got like an intellectual understanding of, I understand what all this other stuff is, and I can kind of strengthen things and kind of move towards it in that way, which arguably is more important than anything else.
Well, this is the other thing, right? Is like I'd say you're a mentor as well. Like not so much just a teacher, because a teacher implies some kind of like unordered transactionality, whereas mentor is more of like a guide. And yeah, I suppose that's it, right? So I feel bad that we didn't get to do technical stuff today again, but
like that's all right, man. Like, you know, we never have to work through a set amount of stuff, you know. Like I stopped kind of planning lessons with students many years ago. Like I did for a while when I was kind of like figuring out the best way to teach and structure things and whatnot. But then I'd done it for so long, I was like, I know exactly what students need to practice and do to get from here to here. You know, I know what kind of stuff they need to hit. And also, not every student does this. Some students want to do this and then come over here. Some students like this. Like it's different for everybody, you know? So like my job is to understand like from here to here, there's a million ways to get there, but like each student is different. Like what are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? What do they struggle with? How do we move kind of like through that kind of stuff? Like I found over the years that I am pretty much able to fix any problem any student has technically, even if it's something I've never encountered before.
Yeah.
Because like I understand how things work and why, you know? Mm-hmm. And it's been interesting because like some days, you know, I'll tell a student to do one thing a certain way because of reasons. And then like literally later that day, I was telling another student to do the exact opposite thing because it was helping them fix a different problem they were having. Yeah. You know? So like there's no you must do this. It's not like A equals B. You know, it's like we're here, we need to get to here.
Yeah.
Like how do we get there? It's like, well, depends. Like, what does each student need? You know, there are key kind of foundational things that we want to hit, but then there are also things that kind of don't matter.